Welcome to Hope from the Word. I'm Pastor Mike Swenson. Have you ever met someone who was serving on the ragged edge of ministry? You may wonder what that means. What does ragged edge of ministry really mean? Well, it means people serving in places where they haven't heard the good news of Jesus. And so they're sharing the gospel with people who may be unfamiliar with who Jesus even is, or even understanding what the Bible is. And so on more than one occasion, I've had the opportunity to engage people with a team as we talked with them about the gospel of Christ, and they respond. In one occasion, they responded by saying something to the effect of, "I've never heard this before." They were totally unfamiliar with the message of Jesus. And for us, that's a sad thing. We want to be able to share with them the hope that Christ brings to them. And so that was nearly 20 years ago that I had that opportunity. But there are other opportunities that I've had over the time of my life. And we realize that missionaries are still serving in places like this around the world. And so there are times that they need to have others to come in beside them and to be able to support those in those difficult times so that they'll have what they need to be able to do the ministry, that ministry on the very ragged edge. And so some people don't even know where those individuals are serving at because they're either unfamiliar with the name because it's so remote, or it could be that it's at a sensitive location and they need to be careful on how they handle serving in those areas. But the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ needs to be shared in every place. And the Apostle Paul and his team they were on the ragged edge of ministry in their time, and they shared the good news of Jesus with others in places that hadn't heard yet. And it was tough, and they had partners who helped them to fund their ministry. And sometimes there weren't many partners that helped them. But it was tough, and those people would come along and assist them. Sometimes they went without very much, and other times they had more than enough. But listen to what Paul writes to the Philippian church over in Philippians chapter 4, verses 14 to 17. He says these words, "Yet it was good of you to share in my troubles. Moreover, as you Philippians know, in the early days of your acquaintance with the gospel, when I set out from Macedonia, not one church shared with me in the matter of giving and receiving except you only." They were the only ones. Then he says, "For even when I was in Thessalonica, you sent aid more than once when I was in need. Not that I desire your gifts. What I desire is that more be credited to your account." He would say, "I pray that God is going to bless your socks off." Paul had headed out to a couple different places. In fact, he mentions that he had left on a missionary trip from Macedonia, and when he was when he was in Thessalonica, that other place. It was when he was out on the ragged edge at the Philippian church, had called out to him and was going to help him. And so that team, Paul and his team, they were there to serve and to share the good news of Jesus to people who hadn't heard. And you and I have those same kind of opportunities in front of us at times when we're able to engage people who are ministering on the ragged edge, places where the gospel has not went. Yeah, a lot of times we think in the Western world, it's went everywhere. No, it actually has not. It's went to many places, and even more than maybe what we can understand, but there are even more of those remote places or sensitive places where the gospel has not fully went in and established a strong church in the presence of those people. And Jesus said it this way over in Matthew 24, verse 14. He says, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." Friends, we have a job to do as followers of Jesus to be able to share the gospel with every individual we can, with those in our communities, those outside of our communities, those on the very ragged edge that may not know who this Jesus is. And we have an opportunity to be able to support those who are on the edge of ministry, who are on that ragged edge. See, the Apostle Paul, he mentions that the Philippians assisted him in ministry not only once, but more than once, to help him to accomplish the work of God. And may you find ways. May you look for and find ways to be able to invest in the work of the Lord that's set before us today. And maybe God will give you open doors to invest in those who are working on the ragged edge. I pray that God will bless you today and this week, and that you'll be strengthened, and that you'll find those opportunities that God puts in your pathway to be able to support His work in every area. God bless you. Have a wonderful week.